watching Fox 8 News.
827, welcome back. Some of the people affected most by the BP oil spill say they were hoping for a lot more. A Gulf Coast Leadership Summit held nearly 2 months ago brought together key decision makers, but now a joint investigation by our partners at the Lens and Fox 8 has uncovered some major financial problems for the group that was leading that effort. And we're joined now by one of the Lens co-founders, Ariella Cohen. And Ariella, thank you so much for bringing us this story. What's the main problem?
Well, the main problem now is getting paid for folks. It was an expensive summit. It was held in the Hilton. It was 4 days of networking events, an expo, panel discussions that by all accounts were successful. But $75,000 is owed to vendors in the area, ranging from the Hilton to small vendors, freelance photographers, freelance videographers, who say that they need the money and that they were depending on Mr. Loiry and the conference itself to bring some needed income.
And some of these people actually adjusted their rates downward because they wanted to help out people affected by the BP oil spill, and they were left holding the bag on thousands of dollars. How many people might be owed money by Mr. Loiry? Well,
if you go back, Mr. Loiry has had a fascinating career dating back to the late 80s when he began doing business in the former Soviet Union. He actually wrote the first guide to doing business in the Soviet Union and continued to do training and education work for businesses and bankers in the Soviet Union who were just joining capitalism, as it were. He continued to work in the Balkans, Iraq, Afghanistan, when a war broke out later on, obviously, holding conferences, holding summits for contractors interested in government opportunities in reconstruction or war efforts. And so when you look at his record, he owes about $210,000 spanning back these years to different contractors, vendors, hotels.
He often seems to be on the front end of some developing international situations. And Ariella and I sat down with Bill Loiry yesterday, and here's his response.
He's a man with extensive credentials.
I mean, that's part of why we're successful. I have, I guess, a gift of seeing trends ahead of time and needs.
Bill Loiry once worked for former President Bill Clinton's Global Initiative. He also organized summits to warn about the threat from Osama bin Laden 3 years before the 9/11 attack. But most recently, he came to New Orleans to organize the Gulf Coast Leadership Summit to seek solutions after the BP oil spill.
Part of it have been these forums where we bring together government contractors to help in the rebuilding process, but at the same time, it's also a public service because we're bringing together in the case of international situations, we're bringing together the people that we're trying to help.
But through a joint investigation with our partners at the Lens, Fox 8 has found that the summit held in April produced mixed results.
Ultimately, he might even be like less moral than, say, BP, because he's come in here after they've already messed it up, claiming to help, and then, you know, shifting us around like this.
Videographer Michael Fiducia is among a half-dozen vendors who haven't been paid thousands of dollars.
He's done the same thing that BP did to us, and Bernie Madoff and all those other guys.
And it's not the first time that Loiry's leadership conferences have come under question.
I, regret that some people are waiting for their money to be paid, but we are committed to paying that, and we've contacted everyone that has a legitimate claim and worked out a payment schedule.
Still worrying, a lot of those people still waiting on the payment. Loiry's got a pretty mixed record, doesn't he?
I would say financially, yes.
And he's talking about reorganizing that organization, and we're going to have much more on that coming up on later editions of Fox 8 News. Ariella, thank you so much for bringing us this.